Hello to Myrna and Jenn read the Apocrypha. We have been enjoying this little venture of ours. And currently we're reading, if you're just finding us now, we're reading in Jubilees. We'd love you to open it, follow along, see what we have to say, comment, get us out there a little bit. That would be great because we are learning so much. And Myrna
Yeah,
and I, we grew up reading the Bible. So we're both members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So this isn't canonical to us. This isn't in our normal canon of scriptures, but it's something we wanted to dive into and explore and see what we could get out of it. And I feel like we've gotten a good amount.
we have.
So, right now, to catch you up a little bit, we've kind of gone through some Adam and Eve on to Noah, and now we are into his family's generations, his kids, and now we have Abram. And Abram is married to his wife Sarai, and guess what? They have now been given a land by the Lord because Abram has been connecting with God. It's beautiful. He is going to go into his land, and there's a lot that the Lord, I think him and the Lord in chapter 14 are going to have to say. And let's
Yeah.
see what happens to the rest of Abram's story. Okay, here we go. In chapter 14. After these things, in the 4th year of this week, on the new moon of the 3rd month, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a dream, saying, Fear not, Abram, I am thy defender, and thy reward will be exceeding great. And he said, Lord, Lord, what wilt thou give me, seeing I go hence childless, and the son of Meskech, the son of my handmaid, is the Damascus Eliezer. He will be my heir, and to me thou hast given no seed. And he said unto him, This man will not be thy heir, but one that will come out of thine own bowels, he will be thine heir.
That was the Lord talking.
Yes, that was the Lord talking. No, that was Abram talking, saying, Lord, what wilt thou give me? And then the Lord said unto him.
Yeah, that's what I mean. The Lord
Yeah.
was saying that last little
Mm-hmm.
bit.
That last little bit to him. It's interesting that out of thy own bowels. Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. The word bowels gets used so often in the Bible, bowels of mercy and all of this, that I once did a dive into it all and
Mm-hmm.
found that back in the day, parts of the body were actually associated with emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times mercy was found to be in the bowels or that, and so you get these body parts associated with it. But so far I have not heard anyone in the scriptures talk about um that that will come out of thine own bowels. I don't think children come out of his bowels.
Well, they do. He provides a sperm,
Yes, I
and
know.
that's out
But
of his bowels.
but a lot of people think of bowel as bowel movement.
Mm,
That's what they think.
I guess. I think when you're looking at it in a spiritual sense or in
Mhm.
a religious sense, maybe not.
Yeah, I know. That's why though, is if people just come into this and they may not be as familiar with some of the scriptural language.
Yeah.
Bowel is not bowel per se.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Um,
I thought that was an interesting way of saying it to him. Not what I expected.
well, yeah. I mean, we found there's a lot of things we were not expecting
Yes.
when it comes to how the Lord speaks to his children.
Hmm. And
And
yes. And what did you think here? The son of Masquet, the son of my handmaid, is the Damask Eliezer. He will be my heir. So is that saying that he had a handmaid and she had a kid?
yeah, or she had the kid before she became his handmaid.
Ah, and so he
It's not
just
his
chose him.
kid. Yeah.
Right. He just chose him to be his heir. He had some
Well,
qualities that Abram's like, I'm going to have him be my heir.
well, I don't know that. I think that he's the only child in any relationship to him that would qualify to be an heir. I wouldn't say that it's because he likes him or that he's like a good man or that there was any other choices. It kind of sounds like he's the only choice, and Abram's like, well, someone's got to get my stuff, so
Well, then I'm going to
okay, I
look up
guess he would be my heir.
Well, it's just interesting because we read that when Abram went off to help free up some people, there was a little bit of a war thing happening there.
Mm-hmm.
He sent 318 manservants. He had a lot of people. There had to be children, a ton of children.
Yeah, what I mean is that we're his.
Yeah.
You marry someone and they already have children, they're your children.
Right.
But you didn't sire them.
Right. So you're saying that his handmaid was his wife?
No, I'm just saying his handmaid had a child.
Had a child. Before.
And if you remember in the Bible, Sarah wanted to give him his handmaid to have a kid. I don't know that this is the kid. I don't know that a kid came from that. I kind of wonder, and maybe it's just because I'm weird and think this way, that the child was the handmaid's before.
Oh,
and
okay.
it's kind of like, it's like if I married someone else and there was a chance for me to be a polygamist, and I married someone else and I have Ernie, and we'll say we didn't have any kids, but who I married brought a kid with them, and I had no one else to give my money to or my life savings or whatever my heiring pieces are, then I could choose that she would be the one or he would be the one that would get my stuff. Because they didn't give it to the women back then.
No, they didn't.
So it was kind of like he's choosing someone, but I think it's the need for it to be close enough. And if you're married or something to somebody, that child is close enough. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think. I don't know that he doesn't say there's anything special about the kid other than she's my handmaiden.
Right. So as I've been listening here, I can see where you're coming from. I think it's interesting that as I just like looked up like what is the meaning of kind of that Damask uh Elazar, like what that means, and a lot of people have believed it to mean, but I don't think it's fully indicated here that the woman, the handmaid, was a concubine, and that was his child, but not necessarily from his natural, first wife. I don't know. It's just it's an interesting space here. He has somebody that can be heir, but he needs a boy.
Yeah, it doesn't that I can see where people would come to that conclusion, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But what God says to him doesn't make sense to me then.
Agreed.
Because he says it will come from thine own bowels. If this child was sired by him, he came from his own bowels.
From his bowels. Yes, agreed. But I could see how people would immediately be like, oh, that's why he chose him. No, it's not. Excuse me.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't make sense that he would have some concubine because he's favored of the Lord in this moment. And he's following everything. So it's one of those interesting parts here.
Yeah, and we know that the handmaid beforehand was Sarah's handmaid, Uriah's handmaid, right? And so there's a total chance that she had a child from somebody.
Yeah.
Because she used to be her handmaid and she gave her over to him.
And it would be like family.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I just thought I'd throw some of those things out there.
No, that's good.
It is just an interesting bit. But nonetheless, look, thine own bowels, he will be thine heir. He is going to have a child from his own stuff.
Right.
He's going to sire a child.
Yeah.
All right, let's continue.
All right, let's go. 4. And he brought him forth abroad and said unto him, Look toward heaven and number the stars, if thou art able to number them. And he looked toward heaven and beheld the stars, and he said unto him, So shall thy seed be. And he believed in the Lord, and it was counted to him for righteousness.
Can you count the stars? Well, back then there wasn't pollution or light pollution, so I bet they saw a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, there wasn't all the inability to see it like we have now.
So that I just always picture that moment as a very cool moment of like, look up in the heavens. Can you count them? Not really. That's how much you will have. And this is the guy who's sitting there going, I have no natural heirs. I don't have any.
Right.
He has 318 manservants, however many women. It's got this huge, it's like a city. He has so many
It's
people.
amazing. It's so many people.
And boom. Like, it's got to be akin to like a small town of 1,000 people.
Oh, absolutely.
And you just get this moment where it's like, and it's going to be even more than you can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And we know one thing about God, he always fulfills his promises.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So let's see how he does
Let's see what happens.
Mm-hmm. And
7.
And verse 7. And he said unto him, I am the Lord that brought thee out of Ur of the Chaldees to give thee the land of the Canaanites to possess it forever. And I will be God unto thee and to thy seed after thee. And he said, Lord, Lord, whereby shall I know that I shall inherit it? And he said unto him, Take me an heifer of 3 years, and a goat of 3 years, and a sheep of 3 years, and a turtle dove, and a pigeon. What is he going to do with them? Now it's a mystery.
A sacrifice.
Yep, a nice sacrifice.
Yeah, this is an interesting little interaction between him and the Lord, right?
Mm-hmm.
God tells him he's going to have a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, I gave you all this land.
Mm-hmm.
And he's still questioning
Mm-hmm.
whether the land is really his.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think maybe that's why he moved around?
Maybe, because it is an interesting question. Whereby shall I know that I shall inherit it? Like, how am I going to inherit this land? People are living there.
Yeah.
It's called the land of Canaanite for a reason.
Because his brother's son, Lot, is living in the Canaanite land also.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He's living in the town.
Yep.
All right. Let's see what happens. And he took all these in the middle of the month, and he dwelt at the oak of Myrna, which is near Hebron. And he built there an altar and sacrificed all these. And he poured their blood upon the altar and divided them in the midst and laid them over against each other. But the birds divided he not. And birds came down upon the pieces, and Abram drove them away and did not suffer the birds to touch them. All right.
So we get this oak tree. Remember the lofty oak of memory.
Yeah.
So we have that lofty oak again, which seems to be a marker for part of his land, because he basically gets Hebron.
Yeah.
But the sacrifices, it's interesting that it's something specific about the birds.
Yeah, that's interesting. Maybe as we read further, we'll understand that. But it almost seems like a tangent.
Yes, it does.
that someone just threw in because, well, they wanted to explain that they were separated, but
Yeah, so, but he is doing what he has been asked to do because remember, he had
yeah,
built that altar there.
right. When he first got there.
Oh, and he built there an altar and sacrificed these. Oh, he had had an altar also somewhere else. So he must have
Oh,
then built one right there.
oh, okay.
Hey, this guy loves to build altars and sacrifice like he's supposed to,
Yeah,
compared to the hedonism of the other people in the
yeah,
area who were idol worshippers. Okay.
okay.
And 13. And it came to pass when the sun had set that an ecstasy fell upon Abram. And lo, an horror of great darkness fell upon him. And it was said unto Abram, know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and they shall bring them into bondage and afflict them 400 years. And the nation also to whom they will be in bondage will I judge. And after that they shall come forth thence with much substance. And thou shalt go to thy fathers in peace and be buried in a good old age. All right, so I haven't heard something be called an ecstasy fell upon him.
I have not.
I have not. Um, but it has that sound of the Lord unfolded this vision to him.
Yeah, kind of telling him how things are going to go.
Things are going to go a little prophecy,
Yeah.
and that was quite a prophecy. Is this where we get in the scriptures a stranger in a strange land
Um, I think it's been said in a couple of other
in different
places.
places, right?
Yeah, this may be the first.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
But to know that your people will be afflicted for 400 years. I guess that makes it a little different back then, though, because people are living like Methuselah. He was living for like 900 years or
years. Yeah,
something. So, like, oh,
yeah,
for 400 years, I guess for them that doesn't sound long, where us, we don't even barely get 100 years, most people.
right.
That's like 4 generations easily
Yeah,
or more. Sounds
yeah,
very long.
absolutely. It does, and also to be told um,
Mm-hmm.
where you're going to be buried.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I know sometimes people think that as being comforting,
Mm-hmm.
but I get a lot of anxiety and unsettlingness to even
Uh-huh.
think that I'm going to die.
Really?
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I get it. I know I'm going to. It's not like I'm lying to myself and saying you're never
Right.
going to do it. I know it. But like sometimes when I get super, super sick, that's the first thing I say to Heavenly Father. I don't want to die. I can't die yet. I got so much more to do. Please don't let me die. Um,
Right.
so to be told where you're going to be buried, and
Mm-hmm.
I guess the good thing is that he was told it was going to be a good old age. So
Yeah. So he can kind of like, I guess, breathe for a moment.
maybe it
But
would.
knowing that you're going to have a lot of children, say grandchildren, like it's going to spread, but that there's also going to be bondage and other things. It's like, wow, I'm glad that the Lord gave me a land and that he's going to give me an heir. And it's like, and also there are going to be a few things that are going to happen that are not going to be as happy.
Right.
So it feels like a
Maybe.
very balanced moment.
Yeah, maybe it's not as bad as I think of it. Because he did say it would be in a good old age. So it's not like he's saying you're going to die soon.
Right. Good old age.
So maybe I don't need to
Let's just say we would all like to say the prayer.
stress out about it.
Well, yeah, but we'd all like to say the prayer, wouldn't we? And be like, will the Lord tell me you'll die at a good old age? I'd be like, oh, wait, what's a good old age? What do
I
I
was just going
consider
to
a
say
good old age? The Lord is not very specific about that.
that's right.
So I'm not quite sure what he means by good old age, but that would mean white hair to me. So, you go Abram. And at this point, I
Yeah.
mean, I guess we could go back in and figure out a little bit of approximately what age he's at, but um
Mm.
I guess we'll see some of this here. Okay, so he's been told some new information. What is he going to do with it?
Well, we know it's before, I want to say that they had their child
Mm-hmm.
when he was like 100 and something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's before that,
Right.
but
So he's
still.
still in his early prime.
Well, yeah, for that time,
Mm-hmm.
that would be
Yep.
prime.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Let's see what they're gonna do.
Okay.
Or more
16.
information to learn.
Yeah. 16. But in the fourth generation they shall return hither, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. And he awoke from his sleep, and he arose, and the sun had set, and there was a flame, and behold, a furnace was smoking, and a flame of fire passed between the pieces. And on that day the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, to thy seed will I give this land, from the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates, the Kenates, the Kenizzites, the Cadmonites, the Perizzites, and the Rephaim, the Corites, and the Hivites, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Girgashites, and the Jebusites.
Way to go, Myrna! You get
Okay,
an
wow.
award.
Yes, that was crazy. And the day passed, and Abram offered the pieces, and the birds, and the fruit offering, and their drink offering, and the fire devoured them.
Okay.
Wow. So is that kind of like God, in a way, wrote a line on the land, a boundary line for him on his land with all of those cities?
Yeah, I'm looking up some of that right now and seeing what it says. Um. Oh. Nope, that is not what I was meaning. Because the Amorites were a people, a group who
Right.
lived in Canaan before the Israelites. So I am curious because it does make it sound like that is like land or something, but at the same time those sound like groups of people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, put in Hivites.
Yeah.
Hivites. Is that a group of people?
So um were Canaanite people mentioned in the Bible, and descendants of Canaan, son of Ham, the Israelites conquered the Havites. So those are all groups of people that are
People.
probably living in Canaan.
Yeah.
The I saw that I put in the Kenites as well, and I will pick one more here of these because I'm betting they were all living in Canaan area.
Yeah, so I guess these are all people that might have lived within
Yep,
those
they all
in that
lived
boundary.
within his boundaries that the Lord gave
Mhm.
him. So let's just say there are the how many groups are listed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I'm going to
Well,
say 11 groups of people are not going to be happy.
oh, that's Euphrates. Never mind. Yeah, 11.
I'm going to say they're not going to be happy
Yeah.
because their land is no longer there.
Yeah. That's interesting. The things you learn when you read the Apocrypha.
100%.
Right.
Because I guess when I hear the Canaanites, I picture them as one people.
Right.
When actually we're seeing a list of 11 people, 11 tribes that lived in that area.
Yeah.
So,
and one of them happens to be Canaanites. So it's
yes.
the land of Canaan.
Because they
and
founded the
there's
land,
all these
per se.
people.
Yes. But there were lots of different tribes living there that had to be conquered by Abram.
Yeah. Okay.
So interesting. So I guess it's more interesting to think of now, and I really am sitting there going, how have I missed some of this in the Bible? That
Yeah.
he had such wealth, Abram had such wealth, that he probably had a small town of maybe 1,000 people in total, kind of working for him.
Yeah.
And in his sphere. And I'm going to say having 318 guys who are willing to take up arms and go out there and be soldiers for you. If you're fighting tribes and not a huge Canaanite army, if you're fighting these little tribes of people, even if they were somewhat around your size, that seems more manageable to do than like, I don't know, you're picturing like Abram with like, I don't know, some guys with him, like 10 people. Like I just never pictured the massiveness of it.
Yeah, it's you can pick off each person individually, and slowly take the whole
area.
bite, right? But you take small bites of the elephant.
Yes, and then eventually eat it all. Very true. Okay.
Right.
So you get an award for saying all that.
Yeah.
Oh, and this is the first. Is this the first time we've heard that there are drink offerings? Because I know about the animals and the flesh and the blood, and that we've heard of the fruit offerings, but I don't remember hearing or reading drink offerings.
Yeah, I don't remember. If we did, we both missed it because I do not remember anything about that.
And the fire devoured them, so I guess they put them in the fire. I'm just now my mind is just curious about that because I can picture the fruit burning, the bird and the blood kind of boiling and burning, but I'm like drink offering. Interesting.
You would think the drink offering would put it out.
Yeah, you would think that. So, just interesting. We'll see if anything else comes up with that.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that. Thank you for pointing that out. I did not even notice that.
All right. Verse 20. And on that day we made a covenant with Abram, according as we had covenanted with Noah in this month. And Abram renewed the festival and ordinance for himself forever. And Abram rejoiced and made all these things known to Sarai his wife, and he believed that he would have seed, but she did not bear. And Sarai advised her husband Abram, and said unto him, Go in unto Hagar, my Egyptian maid. It may be that I shall build up seed unto thee by her.
Okay.
All right, Sarai.
Okay, maybe now that I hear the name Hagar, I do remember that it was her. So it wasn't that other handmaid. But I don't, from what I am learning about Abram, I don't believe he had any children from anybody else. So I have a hard time believing that that was a child of his through the handmaid.
I agree.
He's very obedient. At least
he is. And in this moment, his wife is saying, I have not yet borne you a child, and we've been together a while. So take my handmaid, and I'm telling you, maybe that is how we will have seed.
Yeah.
That's an interesting play for a wife. But at that time, again, if women were barren and they did not bear children, what were you going to do?
Right.
The idea these days of like, oh, we're just going to get married and have kids and move on, or not have kids, sorry, and move on in life is a rational, I guess, idea to a lot of people. However, back then, it was about you having family and increase. You had to have the increase, and it had to be a male child to pass it on to.
Right.
And so I find it just how interesting, because back then it did seem the most rational thing. You have to have an heir.
Yeah, I don't think there was as much of a precedence as we have nowadays
Right.
of handing your stuff over to
Yes.
someone that you have not
Mhm.
sired or
Correct.
that is like super close to you. Like Lot's gone. He's not going to give it to
Yeah.
Lot. Lot's got
Right.
all of his dad's stuff. He'd be
Yeah. Mhm.
like a
A mega
hoarding
wealthy
maniac,
person.
man.
Mhm.
Um, so it kind of just seems like it's natural for me to think
Mhm.
I do need an heir. I need something. And when we had a hard time having children, I really felt bad. I
Yeah.
really did because I knew that Ernie would be a good father. And so
Mhm.
I just totally felt bad. And I could see doing something like this if nowadays you had things like handmaids,
Right. Mhm.
because I would still consider them part of the family. I would consider them,
Right.
you know. So yeah, I can feel and understand Sarai's feelings and why she would do such a thing. And it's even more palatable to her to want to do it because of the type of society they lived in back then.
Right. Uh, One of the things I am finding about handmaids of the time, the handmaid could be given to her master by the mistress to bear children.
Mm-hmm.
That was something that could happen.
And I
If there was
believe
a
that,
problem.
and I believe that's why they never consider
Mhm.
Abram, at least not that I have heard, as a polygamist
As a polygamist or an adulterer.
or an adulterer because it was given to him
Mhm.
by Sarai.
Mhm.
Now I love verse 20
Mhm.
where it says Abram wasn't a very old man at the time that it's
Mhm.
talking about here. It says that they made a covenant with Abram according as we had covenanted with Noah in this month. And
Yeah.
Abram renewed the festival and ordinance for himself forever.
Yes.
So that's why I say I have a hard time seeing him
Yeah.
as his own taking someone to give him
Yes.
a child
Mhm.
because he's doing these kind of things. He's
Mhm.
making covenants with God.
Yep.
He's going to the temple.
Mhm.
He's making covenants with God.
He's
He's
doing the
growing.
sacrifices.
Yes, he's doing the
Mhm.
sacrifices. He's growing in his understanding of
Mhm.
the path back to God.
Mhm.
And he's renewing all of these festivals and ordinances that have been lost over the years.
Yeah, because there was a huge list during Noah. There was a huge list that we read about how all the festivals were supposed to line up with the moon, um,
Mm-hmm.
patterns and other things like the first of this month and this, and in the Jubilees. And it's been lost because now everyone's into idolatry. So he's
Well,
renewing this.
it's been lost because
Yeah,
Noah's sons refused to
yeah,
continue it going,
that's true. They refused.
right? And there was a whole list of what they were not
They
doing anymore.
mhm.
So I love
Interesting.
that.
So it like skipped a generation and now Abram is taking the charge up again.
Yeah. And I just love this is why I say I don't believe that he did have that
Yeah.
that child was his because he was so obedient.
Mhm.
He doesn't have to bring these things back. He doesn't have to do any of that. But he's making covenants. He's growing in his understanding and closeness to his Savior and his Heavenly Father. So,
Okay.
Couple
last couple of verses here. And let's see what Abram did with the suggestion. And Abram hearkened unto the voice of Sarai his wife, and said unto her, Do so. And Sarai took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian, and gave her to Abram, her husband, to be his wife. And he went in unto her, and she conceived and bare him a son, and he called his name Ishmael. In the 5th year of this week, and this was the 86th year in the life of Abram. He's 86.
Yeah.
Well,
okay.
So he went ahead and did it, and now and her husband and to be his wife, of course, because he is going to have relations with her. So that only happens between husband and wife.
Correct.
It is interesting because I just had this thought come into my mind. At this point, what we haven't heard, or I don't remember reading anything that said ceremony wise that you are now husband and wife. But they became husband and wife.
Yeah, I think there is one. They must just not choose to talk about it. Maybe it's like supposed to be understood that it's there.
Yeah, I'm just curious because for a long time it was, oh, you're going to be with your cousin, and now you're husband and wife.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think they choose not to speak about it because it's God set that precedence in the Garden of Eden.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So interesting. I looked it up, and according to what I'm finding, it is a covenant relationship between a man and a woman before God. They become dependent on and responsible for each other. And of course, the covenant is a metaphor for God's relationship. Wedding celebrations are common in the Bible and were social events, but it does not prescribe a specific ceremony. We get a lot of the social stuff that happens when, the bridegroom and them going out, and we get some of these parts, but I just find that interesting being in this section of it all, as there is a covenant that happens between the two.
Yeah. I remember Skousen talks about the process of a marriage relationship between a man and a woman at the time of the Bible. And part of it is simply they covenant to be with each other before they even get married. When they get betrothed, that's when the covenant happens. That's when the covenant happens. And then when the actual ceremony happens, can be a year later.
Right.
Right. So I'm wondering if they just, maybe because of the culture, the Jewish culture, they choose to look onto the covenant rather than the actual ceremony of conjoining each other, because the covenant is when it all starts and when it happens.
Yes, and I like that. I like the focus on the covenant and not the ceremony.
Yeah.
Because it's the covenant between the two people and with God that's important.
Right. Yeah.
Celebration is just something fun.
So, yeah, and if you go through he went through the story of the bridegroom in the Bible, and he shows you the correlation between that and the covenant, and between that and what Christ was saying when he was using it for a metaphor, right? And there's so much in there to pull out and learn that, at least for me, that story of the bridegroom became much more important because I learned all of that underlining history of back then.
Right.
And that's one reason why I felt bad that they took the veil out of being covered during what we do in the temple. Our face is being covered. The veil's still there, but our face is being covered, because that is absolutely part of this ceremony, and it has meaning and reason to it. But that's amazing. If you can, I could put link to it.
Yeah, put a link to that
down below, because that learning a lot of that really helps to understand A, the people, B, to more understand Christ's reasoning for using that as his story to teach his points. So
yeah, it's just that, like I said, just that thought jumped into my mind. Like, we haven't heard about a ceremony. We've just been told that he took her to wife. And you just accept that he took her to wife, and you know that it was under a covenant, because all of it was. Well, maybe not now in the idolatrous group of people, but Abram.
Right.
So, interesting. I've learned a lot with this one.
Totally interesting. Yeah. Good information. Good stuff.
Okay. So, we have finished chapter 14. We've gotten the story of Abram and how he begats Ishmael with Hagar. And we will be, and he's now renewed these festivals and all of these things, and he's been told that he's going to have such great posterity. He's looking like he is on top of, he's got all these great things happening. However, there is going to be a little bit of conflict, he's been told, and he's gotten some prophecy in that regard, and I think that's great for him, because he's only 86 here, and he's going to live a little while longer.
Yeah, we know it's a little while longer.
Yeah, we do. So all right.
Okay.
I've enjoyed today. Thank you, Myrna, for all of your thoughts. And please, again, comment, like. We'd love to interact with anyone who's enjoying this and interested in what we're talking about. We appreciate you with us today, and we will see you next week. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, what is it, Myrna? Apocryphal